about 8 to 10 minutes after the launch. We should be able to hear the rumble if it's not.
Yes, yes. 6:30, so about 5 minutes. Just showing some videos on my YouTube channel. It has anything and everything to do with space exploration. Some of these are from Kennedy Space Center. This one here is the Artemis 1 SLS rocket on the launch pad. And I'll talk about that a little bit. All right, good evening. According to my clock, it's 6:30, so we're gonna go ahead and get started. Come right in, have a seat if you'd like. My name is Mark Gillette, and I'm an ambassador for NASA. Let's see if I can get this thing to work properly. There we go. Where would you like to sit? So welcome, again, my name is Mark Gillette, I'm an ambassador for NASA. When I'm not busy doing this, I am a sociology professor at Valencia College over in Orlando. So if you decide to take any classes at Valencia and you take sociology, I may be your instructor. So this particular program that I'm a part of, the Solar System Ambassador Program, is run out of JPL, out of in California, run for NASA. I've been doing this for about 6 years. You might ask, why would a sociology professor be presenting on NASA? Simply because I have a lot of passion for NASA and space exploration. So that's why I'm here. We've got about an hour, and I'm streaming this on my YouTube channel for those who may not be able to attend but would like to listen in on what's going on. And I have information about my YouTube channel if you're interested back on the back table. In addition to that, before you leave, make sure that you do stop by the tables that are back here and feel free to take anything that you'd like. Okay? I brought it here for you, so if you like it, feel free to take it. Okay? So, let me show you what our agenda is for the next hour. I want to talk about these things. There are many, many different things that we could take a look at when it comes to NASA and space exploration. So I really had to whittle it down to just a few things to get it to within an hour. We're going to talk about the International Space Station. We're going to talk about what NASA calls the Commercial Crew Program. We're going to talk about Artemis, the new Return to the Moon program. The first one was Apollo. And we're going to talk about SpaceX's Starship. If you follow space and you're interested in space exploration, you've probably heard about this really, really big rocket that Elon Musk and SpaceX is developing out in California. That's going to be used to land the astronauts on the moon for the first couple times. We're going to talk about the Perseverance Mars rover and the small helicopter that caught a ride on Perseverance. We'll talk about JWST, the James Webb Space Telescope. We'll talk about GOES, it's a weather satellite. The Europa Clipper is a very exciting mission that's supposed to launch in just a few weeks, so I'll tell you about that. I'm going to show you a really neat thing that all of you can do later tonight on your computer called NASA Eyes. And then Q&A. And actually, if you have any questions as we go through this presentation, please feel free to stop me and ask any question at any time that you'd like. The more you get involved, the more interesting I think it will be. All right? Sound like a plan? So again, welcome so much. My name is Mark Gillette. You can simply call me Mark. So the first thing I'd like to do is talk about the International Space Station. It was built back in the 1990s and early 2000s. It was first inhabited by astronauts in the year 2000. And in fact, now we are looking at 24 years that there have been astronauts inhabiting the ISS. The ISS is roughly 250 to 350 miles above the Earth. It's moving quite fast. Anyone have any idea how fast it's going? Any guesses?
20,000 miles an hour?
Pretty close, 17,500 miles per hour. When there's no atmosphere, it doesn't seem like you're going that fast. But in fact, it only takes about 90 minutes for the ISS to orbit the Earth. So they go through many sunrises and sunsets throughout one particular day. There are typically 6 to 9 astronauts on board at any one time. It is called the International Space Station, so it's not completely owned and run by NASA. It's a joint venture with the European Space Agency, with the Japanese Space Agency, and with the Russians. There have been a number of people from different countries all over the world that have had the opportunity to go on the ISS at one point or another. The life of the ISS is unfortunately coming to an end, and just recently NASA has expanded its life to about the year 2030, so only about 5 more years to go, and at that point it will be deorbited and it will no longer exist. It's lived its life, per se. Clear sky. If it's going at the right place at the right time, you can actually go outside at nighttime, right around sunset or right around sunrise, and you can see a little dot go across the sky. And that's the ISS. It won't look like this. It will just be a little tiny dot, all right? If you're interested in seeing when I need to go out and take a look at it, go to spotthestation.nasa.gov. You put in where you are, your location, your email address, and NASA will send you an email about a day before it's visible, telling you exactly what time, where to go, where to look, how long it's visible. And so it's a really neat thing, spotthestation.nasa.gov, if you'd like to see a little tiny white spot go across the sky. And you may think, well, gee, how exciting can that possibly be? Well, you gotta use your imagination and go, wow, there are human beings on that thing going 17,500 miles above us. All right? And in fact, right now it's Expedition 71, about every 6 months roughly, they switch out astronauts. So they're already on Expedition 71. So just use your imagination and you can think about these people up there doing incredible science. This is one of the ways that science explores our solar system and beyond. They can do things that we simply can't do on Earth. For example, there's no gravity up there, so they can do experiments that we can't do here on Earth. Okay? It's about the size of an American football stadium altogether. Yeah, quite a piece of engineering. As a sociology professor, I often talk about many of the problems that we experience in our world, and I'm sure that you are very aware that we have a lot of problems, and we're often fighting and bickering with one another. But when we come together, we can do incredible things. And that's one of the reasons I love NASA, because they're always pushing the envelope.
When it's retired, how does it come back down, or?
So recently, NASA has announced that they're looking to have SpaceX, a private space company started by Elon Musk, to actually deorbit it, and when it deorbits, it's going to come back through the atmosphere and it's going to burn up. I think they may try to save some pieces of it, put them in a museum. That would be great. But there's also been talk I've heard recently about SpaceX wanting to go and kind of push it, because eventually it's going around and around, and with gravity, it's going to pull it back down the Earth. And it does have some thrusters on board to kind of control for that, but eventually it just doesn't end well. So there's been some talk about SpaceX kind of trying to prolong its life as well. We're seeing. But, yeah, we live in a world of impermanence, and everything has a life. So.
How does it feel when the space station goes back?
So you don't even know that it's going fast, because on Earth we have an atmosphere with oxygen. We need that to breathe. In space they don't have that. So even though you're going really, really, really fast, you don't feel like you're going really, really fast. I've not been to space. I would absolutely love the opportunity to go to space, but so I can only speak from what I have heard. All right, let's take a look at, this thing is a little finicky here. There we go. All right, so back in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s, ending in the year 2011, NASA had what was called the Space Shuttle program. Are you familiar with the space shuttle?
Yeah.
And so the space shuttle was basically NASA's way of exploring low Earth orbit. The space shuttle generally never went much further than 350 miles above the Earth. That's not very far, all right? It helped to build the ISS that we were just talking about. But that program was kind of getting dated. There were 5 shuttles, Columbia and Challenger, both didn't end very well. Challenger blew up upon launch back in 1986. Columbia disintegrated when it was coming back to Earth in 2003. There were 3 other shuttles, Discovery, Atlantis, and Endeavour. So the program ended in 2011. The 3 remaining shuttles are now in museums. In fact, one is at the Kennedy Space Center. If you've never been to the Kennedy Space Center Visitor Complex, it's about an hour drive from here, hour and a half from here. Highly recommend it. It's going to be much more educational than going to Universal or Disney, and it's not going to be as expensive. So if you're interested in space exploration and NASA, I highly recommend that you go check it out. I've got some pamphlets in the back that you can take a look at and see all the neat things that they've got, including Atlantis, one of those retired space shuttles on display for you to take a look at. They did a really nice job of putting it on display. So in 2011, when they retired the shuttle program, there was a problem. And the problem was, how do we get astronauts from Earth to the ISS? Because we use the shuttle. So we started first paying the Russians to shuttle our astronauts back and forth. But NASA decided to create what's called the Commercial Crew Program. That is kind of what it says that is. Commercial businesses that would kind of take on that responsibility. So NASA contracted with 2 companies, SpaceX and with Boeing and the United Launch Alliance. All right, so if you keep up with the news, one of these 2 companies has done a very, very, very good job of this, and the other one, not so much. Okay, of course, the one that's been doing the good work is SpaceX. They've been shuttling astronauts back and forth. In fact, just a few days ago, SpaceX took 4 private citizens, launched them from Kennedy Space Center, took them on a 5-day trip further from the Earth than any humans have been other than the astronauts for the Apollo program. 2 of them don't really say it qualifies for a spacewalk. They open the hatch and they peek their head out. But hey, that's pretty cool. And that was all part of SpaceX's plan to push us forward so that maybe one day in the future, you and I might get the chance to do that. And so they're testing out systems.
I was just saying, since you said they took 4 citizens up there, wouldn't that mean that they would soon be sending kids up there?
You never know, yeah. They sent William Shatner from, Star Trek many years. He was the oldest gentleman, I believe, ever sent into space. Yes, I believe he was. And so I assume that probably one day they're gonna say, hey, let's take someone very young. So it's pretty cool to see what SpaceX is up to. I personally am not speaking on behalf of NASA at the moment, and I'm live streaming this on the internet, so I probably shouldn't say this. I think Elon Musk has got some issues going on. That's another thing. It takes smart people to do incredible things. We all have issues, so yeah, I think he's got his, but we'll stay off of that. All right, well, things haven't been going very well over here.
But it's not just Elon working, it's 14,000 employees on SpaceX too, so.
Yes, right. Good. Boeing's had a lot of problems, and so if you watch the news, you see that just recently in June, the first 2 astronauts to go on their Starliner, as it's called, their capsule, up to the International Space Station, they had some problems with some leaks. They had problems with thrusters, which allow them to maneuver the capsule around. They were able to dock, and a 2-week stay turned now into a almost 8-month stay because NASA did not feel like it was safe to put those two astronauts, Sonny Williams and Butch Cassidy, I believe his name was, back in that capsule and return them to Earth. So they decided to leave them there, and this came back on its own, and it did land safely in the New Mexico desert. And so now Boeing has a lot of work to do to try to figure out why they have the leaks and why those thrusters did not work appropriately. So at the rate that they move, I'm thinking it may be quite a long time before more astronauts get in and they get up to the ISS. So we're keeping an eye on them and see what's going on. They use the United Launch Alliance to launch their rockets, and this is the crew capsule, Dragon crew for SpaceX, and they use their Falcon 9 rocket. That's the commercial crew program. So I mentioned earlier the Apollo program. Back in the 1960s and 1970s, we had 12 human beings that walked on the moon. All right, and that was all part of the Apollo program. First man, of course, who was the first man to walk on the moon? Neil Armstrong in July of 1969. And so in 1972, NASA decided to cancel the program. They canceled the program because Americans lost interest in humans going to the moon. And so their budget was cut. And so they had to cancel the program. There were still 2 to 3 more Apollo programs that they were going to do, but they had to cut it. Another thing I'm not supposed to talk about is budget. Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams were the astronauts that went up on the Starliner. Any guesses as to how much money NASA gets from our federal tax dollars? Because it's not cheap to build these rockets and to send these people up. Out of $1, if you had $1 bill, how much does NASA get out of that $1?
1 cent. 1.5 cents.
A half a cent. So if you have $1, NASA gets a half a penny.
Wow. Okay.
And to see what they do is mind-boggling. So I think it's money well spent. So when the shuttle program ended in 2011, NASA refocused its attention to deep space exploration, because keep in mind the space shuttle from 1981 to 2011 was low Earth orbit, staying relatively close to the Earth. But NASA said we need to go into deep space. We want to go back to the moon, and then we want to go to Mars. The immediate question that should come to mind is, wait a minute, we've already been to the moon. Why do we want to go back to the moon? Let's just go to Mars. That's the next big adventure that we can have. Any thoughts about why we want to go back to the moon first? Well, practice. We need practice. We're only 12 human beings that ever walked on the moon. Some of them were only there a couple hours. A few of them were there a few days. That's not enough knowledge to be able to take a long journey to Mars that will take, about 9 months to get there, 9 months to get back. You have to live there when you get there, because you have to make sure that the planets are in a certain alignment, because if not, your 9-month journey can turn into a 18-month journey because things aren't lined up the way that they need to be lined up. Regardless, it's going to be a very, very long trip for astronauts to take, and they need to know how to live on another body other than Earth. So that's why we're going back to the moon. So the new moon program is called the Artemis program. Okay? Took many, many years to engineer and build a new rocket. Keep in mind, this is the same rocket that will be used when we do eventually go to Mars. Okay? So it needs to be extremely big, extremely powerful to get the job done. Because we do have plans to go beyond the moon. Moon's about 250,000 miles away. Takes a couple days to get there. Okay? Again, Mars, 40 million miles away. Takes about 9 months to get there. Very different. You need a big rocket to get the capsule. The capsule you can't see right now, it's enclosed in these fairings, but that's what it is right there. It's called the Orion capsule, built by Lockheed Martin, can accommodate up to 4 astronauts. So on November 16th, 2022, the first Artemis launch, Artemis 1, launched from Kennedy Space Center. Okay, it went around the moon a few times, all autonomously. No one was on board, no astronauts. They did testing, brought it back, splashed down in the Pacific Ocean off of the coast of San Diego. Okay, that was the plan. Everything worked pretty well. There were some problems. For example, the heat shield. You can't see the heat shield. The heat shield, this is the service module, which is built by the European Space Agency. One of the major differences between the Apollo program and the Artemis program is we're not doing it alone. And so, for example, the Europeans built the service module, and that's their contribution, right? But the heat shield is right, nope, didn't want to do that. The heat shield is right below here, you can't see it. And so when this thing comes back from, let's say, Mars or the moon, it's going to be going 22,000 miles per hour. And it's going to hit our atmosphere, which creates heat. And there has to be a way of protecting the Orion crew capsule so that the astronauts don't burn up. Well, they did detect that there were some problems when they went and did some inspections on it when it landed from this Artemis 1 mission. So they're working on fixes and trying to get it all good to go because we don't want our astronauts to burn up. Okay?
So they're gonna land on water, not like on a plane when they showed those space crew landing on an airstrip.
Yes, the space shuttle landed like a plane. There's a glider on the runway, but this capsule splashes down in the Pacific Ocean, and then they have to go out and pick up the capsule, bring it in, and the astronaut can get out. But what a ride that must be, coming back in 22,000 miles per hour. You hit the atmosphere, you can see the heat building up around the outside. Yeah. Talk about a roller coaster ride.
There'll be a steam bath when they reach.
Yes, yes, right. Okay, let's see how this is going. All right, seems to be still moving right along. Artemis 2, the next Artemis program launch is currently scheduled for next year, late 2025. There are 4 astronauts. They've already been selected. You can check them out online. Those 4 astronauts will be in the Orion crew capsule on top of the SLS rocket. It will launch from Kennedy Space Center. They're going to go around the moon, come back. I think the mission is currently scheduled for 5, 6 days. That's what I currently believe it to be. And so they're going to have the opportunity to be in the spacecraft and test out the systems that were tested autonomously in Artemis 1 when there were no astronauts on board. Okay? So that's the plan. Late next year, Artemis 2, 4 astronauts, they go around the moon, they don't land, they come back. Okay?
Haven't they like gotten soil from the moon and
Yes,
seen if things could plant and grow on the moon?
yeah. They
I
collected.
haven't kept up on it all, but.
They did with this one. They did with the Apollo mission. They collected soil and they brought it back. The Chinese landed a rover on the far side of the moon 2 years ago. They collected samples. They returned them to Earth. There's been a lot of research done about the moon. We're actually going to be going to, if I had a map of the moon, I could show you that the Apollo landings occurred somewhere around the equator. For the Artemis program, we're gonna go to the South Pole. Anyone know why?
Created with ice.
Yes,
Ice.
ice. And that ice can be used for drinking water. It can be split into the hydrogen and oxygen and used for rocket fuel.
Wow.
Okay, so that's the plan. Artemis 3, currently scheduled for 2026. I doubt it's gonna happen, but it's hard. Space is hard. You know, if this was easy, everybody would be doing it. This is very, very difficult stuff. So right now, 2026, we're looking at loading 4 astronauts into the capsule, going to the moon. 2 of them will stay in what's called Gateway, which will be a very small ISS that will orbit the moon, and 2 of them will go down to the surface of the moon. Okay, and to show you, no.
Oops.
All right. To show you how we're going to take those 2 astronauts down to the surface of the moon, I have a little picture here. If you keep up with space launches, I always keep up with what's happening. There's a really cool website that you can go to. It's called spaceflightnow.com. Spaceflightnow.com. And it tells you all the launches that are occurring all over the world. So if you ever want to know when something's launching from the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station or Kennedy Space Center, or on the west coast of the US or in Australia or whatever, go there and it will tell you exactly where, when, what's flying, spaceflightnow.com. All right, so Space Shuttle, tiny, Falcon Heavy, I'll be talking about that in a few minutes. There's one of the configurations for the Artemis moon rocket, SLS. Saturn V, used for the Apollo program, 60s and 70s. Now here's SpaceX's Starship. So Elon's trying to put together this really, really big rocket that he wants to do a few things with. One thing that he wants to do with this really big rocket is kind of use it as a transportation system from, let's say, the US to Europe, or Europe to Asia. So he'd load up, 200, 300, 400 people. Instead of taking a plane, you get on the spaceship and it would take you to the new location.
Wow.
Okay? Another thing that he wants to do with this is he wants to build this, and this is going to be his rocket, to SpaceX's rocket, to take people to Mars. Okay? He believes that we need to be an interplanetary species, that we should be living on multiple places, and so this is the rocket that he wants to use to get us living on Mars.
If the Earth has like limited resources, limited fuel, will they eventually be like regulating? Because like if people are just doing joyrides to space, let's say, and using up a lot of our fuel, like will they be working out that issue?
Well, so there are different fuels used for different rockets, and so for the Falcon 9 rocket, it's a kerosene. For the SLS rocket that NASA's building, this is hydrogen and oxygen. We actually got a lot of that. So it depends on what kind of fuel is being used for the rockets, and that's not so much a concern right now that I'm aware of anyhow. NASA contracted with SpaceX to also use Starship to be the lander for the for the Artemis 3 program. I talked about 4 astronauts going on Apollo, Artemis 3, late 2026. 2 of them stay in that orbiting laboratory. 2 go down to the moon. Well, how do we get them down to the moon? SpaceX is going to do this. All right. Now, have any of you seen any of the video on YouTube or something of this rocket?
Yep.
Yeah, one. Anyone else? All right. Well, if you're in this kind of stuff, you're in for a treat. Here's a video.
Attention all operators on a countdown 1. This is the final go no-go poll for Starship Flight 4. Stage 1. Go. Stage 2. Go. Standby 2. Go. Flight directors, go for launch. We have liftoff.
This is a really, really big rocket. This is the world's biggest, most powerful rocket, even bigger than the Space Launch System that I was talking about. They just recently, in the last 2 months, did their 4th flight test, and this is video that SpaceX took of this flight. They're just trying to go through different stages.
Hot stage confirmed, ship under its own power.
Quite often things blow up. They're okay with that, they learn from it, they move forward. One of the cool things about SpaceX is they keep moving forward. NASA can't do that.
In the water.
If a rocket blows up, that's a guarantee that things aren't going to be going anywhere for a long time. SpaceX, things blow up all the time. In 2 weeks, they're right back up flying again, okay? So this is the first stage of this huge rocket simulating a landing, because SpaceX is into reusability. They want to reuse the rocket, and they successfully got it to configure to land, and then it splashed down in the ocean. The upper part is what you see here. This will be what's used for the lander. Things didn't go perfectly, there were problems. It started, the heat started tearing it apart. Right here, pieces started coming off of it, not good. But they're going to fix it and they're going to fly it again. And they're actually, I think, very soon, in the next few weeks, maybe a couple months, they're going to fly this thing again. So, that will be the first lander. And Blue Origin, another private company, has been contracted to do 1 or maybe 2 of the other Artemis program landings on the moon. So NASA wants to get many different countries involved, many different companies involved. They want backup systems. Because when something doesn't go right here, they want a backup. That's what's happening with the commercial crew program. Okay? Something happens to SpaceX, right now we're in the same mess that we were in 2011. We have no way of getting astronauts back and forth. So NASA wants redundancy. They want a backup system. Okay? All right, let's move on to the next topic. The title of the presentation is How NASA Explores Our Solar System and Beyond. They use the ISS, they use Artemis, they use commercial companies. We send rovers and landers to different places in our solar system, like Mars 2020, better known as the Perseverance rover. There are other rovers that have been active on Mars. There are a couple others that are active. But this is the newest, biggest, coolest one that's currently there. Built by JPL in California, operated out of JPL. It's about the size of a small vehicle. It landed on February 18, 2021. One of the really cool things about this rover is that it has collected soil samples, put them in little containers, and they're kind of just laying around waiting for a trip where NASA will go and pick these goodies up and bring them back to Earth, much so that we can do some additional testing that can't be done on a rover 35, 40 million miles away. So that's already been done. and NASA's planning the next mission, along with the European Space Agency, to go pick up these soil samples and to return them to Earth. Is this not like mind-blowing? I mean, it just, I don't know how people can't get excited about this stuff. It's just incredible.
How are they gonna find the capsules that the rover left?
What's that?
How are they gonna find them?
They've mapped out everything, and they know exactly where they are, so they know where to go and pick them up. Yeah. Did you all hear about the small little helicopter that went along? Yeah?
Yep, it was more of a drone to them because it was a bit smaller and they used it for sometimes using cargo or aerial pictures of Mars.
Right. JPL, brilliant people, said, hey, why don't we try flying a helicopter on another planet? The problem is, Mars has a very, very thin atmosphere. I think it's only about 1% of Earth's atmosphere. And if you know anything about flying, I have a license, and so one of the things you learn, a pilot's license, is you learn about atmospheric conditions, and your wings have to catch on to something, okay, the atmosphere. Well, Mars doesn't have much of that. So they designed it so that the propellers would turn really, really, really fast to try to catch on to what little is there. They had no idea if this thing was going to fly. No idea at all. Technology.
It opened another one.
There we go. This is actual video, NASA video. Here is the rover right there. The video camera is on that rover, that Mars Perseverance rover, and the blades are turning, and there you go. That's actual video of the Ingenuity actually flying. The first flight, very simple, it only went up a few feet, didn't go sideways, so stayed up there. This is the entire length of the video, just, 40 seconds or so. It's gonna come right back down. But after that, that was it. After that, they went higher, higher, further, further, and it worked beyond expectations. It can do cool things like if you bring it with a rover, it can fly where the rover is going to go and say, oh, you probably don't want to go there because there's a hole that they couldn't detect with the cameras on the rover. A lot of good uses for something like this. So it worked out pretty good. It died. It died. It actually lived much longer than what they thought it was going to. They only thought it would fly a couple times, and it flew 72 times. Wow. Okay, pretty cool stuff. How many of you have heard about the James Webb Space Telescope? Math that I don't do. I don't know. Yes, yeah. I was telling my students today, I was talking about how 20 years ago I decided I wanted to fly a plane. I went to the airport and said, let's go. They're like, no, go read all these books and then you can go in the air. I'm like, oh, I don't want to read all this stuff. And when I started reading through, I'm like, oh, math. It really is used. I didn't think anybody used this stuff that I learned about, and I really do, so. The James Webb Space Telescope, the biggest, baddest space-based telescope ever created by human beings. We've got the Hubble Space Telescope, you've heard of that. It's only about 350 miles above us, orbiting the Earth, like the shuttle did, like the ISS, 17,000 miles per hour, orbits the Earth every 90 minutes. But it was built back in the 90s, late 80s, early 90s. It's been up there for now 30 years. It's dated. It has a relatively small mirror. In telescopes, it's all about the mirror size. And so NASA said we need to build the next big, bad, space-based telescope, not Earth-based. So they came up with the James Webb Space Telescope. Huge mirror. So big that when they wanted to launch it into space, they couldn't have it all assembled, put it on a rocket, and shoot it up into space. So they had to fold it all up.
Wow.
Okay? Trouble. Trouble. Why trouble? Because once you get into space, you've got to unfold it. And if just one thing went wrong, just one little thing, little latch didn't open properly, done. $1 billion US. Now, $1 billion sounds like a lot, doesn't it? I love $1 billion. Keep in mind, NASA only gets a half a penny. Okay? They put it, it took them years to design and engineer and to build this thing. It was many, many years behind. People thought it'd never get off the ground. Finally, they got it down to South America, where it launched from French Guiana. That was the European Space Agency is a part of this mission, and one of their major contributions was providing its ride to space. So they loaded onto an Ariane 5 rocket. They launched it on Christmas morning, 2021, and off it goes. It took 30 days to get to its new home. Its new home is roughly 1 million miles from planet Earth. Okay? So we were talking about Hubble earlier. Hubble is about 350 miles above us. There's a little bit of a difference between 350 miles above us and 1 million miles. Any idea why NASA sent it 1 million miles away from the Earth?
Because they wanted to have this telescope take pictures of things even further away so they would know what they could go for in the future.
Okay, very good. There's another big reason that NASA sent it 1 million miles away from the Earth.
Is that one of the Lagrange points?
It is in the Lagrange point 2, which is to keep it very simple, it's kind of like a very sweet spot when it comes to the gravitational pull of the Earth, the Moon, and the Sun. It works out very nicely there. It has a lot to do with heat. The Earth generates heat, and the James Webb uses infrared photography. Infrared photography is very sensitive to heat. And they needed to get it away from the heat that the Earth generates because the quality of the pictures would not be good at all. So that's why they had to get far away from the Earth. So on its 30-day journey to get 1 million miles away, they had to unfold it. This is it all folded up. And this is the process that it went through. They had to open this, open this, open this. And again, there were something like 300 and something single failure points in this unfolding process. And if just one of them didn't work properly, that's it. There's no way of going and getting this thing and fixing it. See, with the Hubble, when we had the space shuttle, it flew up, we caught up to it, wrapped it with the shuttle arm, pulled it in, fix it, let it go. There's no way of doing that. Everything had to work perfectly. It did. Not only did everything work perfectly, the images that started pouring in were much better than what they even thought they were going to be. Okay? Here's the first image released.
Wow.
This is called the deep field. This is a picture taken in a random area of space. Okay? Everything that you're looking at in this picture, with the exception of these spikes, this one, this one, this one, this one, that one, okay? Any one of these, everything else is a galaxy. And a galaxy is made up of millions and millions of stars. Scientists now know that on average, every star has at least one planet, not necessarily inhabitable. It has a planet We only figured that out only about 30 years ago. In fact, it wasn't until around 1993, 95, where scientists discovered the first exoplanet. An exoplanet is a planet outside of our solar system. Before that, we didn't know that they existed. Now we know that they're all over the place. So everything that you see up here is a galaxy made up of millions of stars, millions of exoplanets. So the mind should start wondering, are we the only thing in town? This is the official logo. It's run out of the Space Telescope Science Institute in Maryland. That's who controls and operates the James Webb Space Telescope. That's another way that NASA explores both our solar system by looking at the planets and deep, faraway galaxies. Now NASA does a lot of research about our planet, planet Earth. All right, they have lots and lots of satellites that are orbiting, doing all kinds of things. And one of the things is they work in conjunction with the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, to kind of see what's happening with the planet, keeping track of the weather, keeping check on global climate change and hurricanes. I had the very unique opportunity back a couple months ago. I was invited by NASA to go out to Kennedy Space Center for 2 days, and it all culminated in the watching of the launch of the last, what's called GOES satellite. Okay, GOES-U was the official title. So let me show you a quick little video about what this satellite is about, and then I'll show you the launch. It didn't work.
NOAA is preparing for a milestone satellite launch in 2024. GOES-U will be the fourth and final satellite in NOAA's latest generation of geostationary operational environmental satellites called the GOES-R series, the nation's most advanced weather observing and environmental monitoring satellite system. GOES satellites orbit 22,236 miles above Earth's equator at speeds equal to its rotation. This orbit provides continuous coverage of weather systems as they develop and move across the Western Hemisphere. GOES-U, which will be renamed GOES-19 when it reaches orbit, will replace the current GOES-16 satellite in the GOES-East orbit. In this position, GOES-U will continue GOES-East's legacy of keeping watch over the contiguous United States, Central and South America, and the Atlantic Ocean.
So, anyone ever seen a rocket launch up close? Anybody driving by to the coast or whatever? Okay, you live in Florida. If you're interested in this stuff, you got to do it. Nothing like it in the world. And so I was lucky enough to be at the press site, the news press site at Kennedy Space Center, which is the closest that you can get to a rocket launch, is about 3 miles. And this is a SpaceX Falcon Heavy rocket, all right? And it launched the satellite that you just learned about, the GOES-U. And so I captured video, and without question, the best launch video I've ever done. And I've had the opportunity to see a few launches. All right. Picture of it on the pad earlier in the day before it launched. It launched at 5:26, I think. You can actually hear the sound waves when you're at the launch coming toward you. It's pretty wild. Very excited people in the background. Our video with my camera as well. Now, as you know, with SpaceX is very much into reusability to reduce the cost of going into space. So you see the two side boosters, they came back and landed at Cape Canaveral. And so I caught some video of that. You can hear the sound of it. These are the boosters coming back. There they are right there, coming back to land. Doing their landing burn. That's almost as exciting as seeing the rocket launch. And then there's a sonic boom that comes along with them. Takes a few seconds, you're here, so wait for it. One more, there we go. So really cool. So NASA's using satellites to explore and better understand planet Earth. All right, we are closing in on time. Next exciting mission coming up is NASA's Europa Clipper. Europa is one of many moons of the planet Jupiter. Scientists believe that if we find life in our solar system beyond planet Earth, it's probably going to be on this moon. Okay, maybe a moon of Saturn, Titan, but they feel like this is the best chance if we find it, this is where it's going to be. Europa is basically covered in ice, about 6 miles deep of ice. Europa, it is understood, has more water, frozen and maybe liquid, below the frozen ice than we have here on planet Earth. As we understand life, it needs water. Scientists believe that below this thick ice layer, that there is liquid water, and it might even be warm liquid water. How is it warm when it's frozen on the top? Jupiter is a very big planet, and Jupiter tugs on its moons and creates thermal heating. Okay? And there are vents and water that comes spewing out of Europa, so we know something's going on down there. So this mission, the Europa Clipper, it's scheduled to launch here in just a few weeks, October 10th, 12:31, from, I believe it's going to be Kennedy Space Center, launching on a SpaceX Falcon Heavy rocket. Takes about 6 years to get there. Yes. Can you imagine working on that project? You started many, many years ago with the design and the engineering, and now it's going to launch, and now you have to wait 6 more years before it gets to where you want it to go. So you have to be very patient when you work with this kind of stuff.
At least they get more science because they're going to do a Mars flyby and a
Yes,
Earth flyby.
right. They're going to do some other exciting things.
At the same time.
So here's what you want to know about Europa Clipper. plumes I was talking about. The main goal of the mission is to explore the possibility of life living on that moon. That's the ultimate goal. It will actually not be in orbit around Europa. It's going to be in orbit around the planet Jupiter. And the reason for that is because of the amount of radiation that Jupiter puts out is incredible. You could easily fry the electronics on the spacecraft. So they're going to take it out long orbit around and quickly bring it in around Europa and then quickly move it away. If it was in orbit around Europa, it would be exposed to too much radiation for too long, and the satellite wouldn't last very long. Quite fascinating. All right.
For many centuries, celestial bodies were thought to circle around our home in perfect harmony. This perception of the cosmos was lost.
Okay. And we have a little schematic here of what the spacecraft looks like. It's going to be using solar panels like you might have on your house. Okay? Really, really big, because as you move towards Jupiter, the amount of sunlight available is greatly diminished. So it needs really big panels to collect the light. Okay, you're almost out of time. So I've got one more thing that I'd love to show you, and that's what's called NASA Eyes. Anyone ever heard of NASA Eyes? So what you do is, let's see, how do I want to do this? You go to eyes.nasa.gov, or just go to Google and put in NASA Eyes. And you're going to come to this really cool website that you're definitely going to want to go to. And there are different eyes on different things. I'm going to take you to eyes on the solar system. And what it does is it brings up a live view, not a live view, a live position of everything that's in our solar system, including the planets and the moons of the planets, and all of the satellites and things that we've launched. So this is the current live view. Okay, it's the real rate. So all of the planets that you see up here, this is exactly the position that they're in right now. You can do the back and you can say, hey, well, what was it like a week ago? You can go forward and see where they're going to be in 20 years from now. Also, if you want to learn about some of the missions, like the Psyche mission, I've got some stuff back there about Psyche. You click on Psyche and it loads it and tells you everything you want to know about that spacecraft. It's really, really cool. You can scroll in and out, see what the spacecraft looks like. There's the solar system, so you can come back here. We don't have time. You spread it out. You can see everything. It's incredible.
What can I learn to
Hmm?
to learn more about the black holes?
About the black hole, so you bring up a good thing. On my last slide, I'm going to say, if you've never been to nasa.gov, if you want to learn more about the missions that we talked about, more about any mission that NASA has ever had, currently has, or is planning, it's all on this website. You could literally spend the rest of your life on this website. There's so much information. So definitely check out NASA Eyes, check out nasa.gov, and we are at the end of the presentation. I've got a YouTube channel. If you're so interested, you can get the little piece of paper in the back and scan in, or you can scan this. And you want more NASA, I've got lots of videos of launches and different neat things that I've had the opportunity to do that will teach you all about space and space exploration. So we've only got literally like 1 minute. Does anyone have any questions, anything that I can answer for you in that 1 minute?
I have a question. So, everyone loves Apollo.
Yeah.
Obviously, everyone's favorite mission is Apollo 11.
Yes.
But besides Apollo 11, what's your favorite Apollo mission?
So my favorite Apollo or favorite NASA mission?
Apollo mission.
Apollo. It'd have to be Apollo 11 because of the significance of a human being walking on the moon for the first time. You know, who was the other human that walked with Neil Armstrong for the first time on the moon? Buzz Aldrin. You ever seen the movie Toy Story? You know Buzz? Buzz Lightyear? That's how Buzz got his name. Oh,
Out of the Milky Way.
Not yet. Not yet. Because there were 2 spacecraft launched back in 1977 called Voyager 1 and Voyager 2. They're actually still going, and they're now in what's called interplanetary space. They've left our solar system. But that was 1977, so that was what, 40, almost 50 years ago. And we're just leaving the solar system. So we don't have that technology quite yet, but maybe some of you young people in here will develop that technology and allow us to do that. Sorry? Very good. So, yeah, very good. So that Europa Clipper mission that I was talking about will go to explore the planet from a distance, will not land. It will fly through some of those plumes, and it will be able to collect samples, but won't land. NASA is planning and discussing another mission that will land on the surface, but it will have to have the technology to be able to drill 6 miles down into that thing. We can't do that on Earth, hardly. How do you send a spacecraft millions of miles away to have the technology to drill that deep, then collect the samples, collect them and bring back? So that's technology that... Yeah, and they're going to fly the spacecraft through those.
Does it come all the way up, or is it just?
It's high. I don't know how high. It's really high. And they're going to fly those spacecraft through it. And they have instruments on board Europa Clipper that will be able to analyze it. So, NASA asks, thank you for attending. I hope that you enjoyed it, got something out of it. NASA always likes for me to get pictures of presentations that I do. And so you're under absolutely no obligation at all to be in the picture. If you would like to be in the picture, NASA has very, very strict policies about picture taking, to the point that they have release forms. And basically the release form says that NASA may take the photos that I submit and use them in some way, in some press release or so on and so forth. So they have to have the written permission of everyone that's in the picture to do that. You're not obligated to do it. If you don't want to, no problem. If you are, I have to have you fill this out first, and then we'll get up here and take a quick picture or submit it to NASA. Totally up to you. I have 2 forms. One is for those under the age of 18, minors. I'll put that one here. And then the adult forms are put here. If you're the parent, you're going to fill one out for you and one out for your child, if you want your child to be in the picture. Other than that, if you don't want to be in the picture, thank you so much for coming. Please don't leave without picking up some stuff. Feel free to take whatever you would like. It's totally free. It's part of your tax money. So take it, and thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm an ambassador. What's that?
If they can do that, that means they could possibly take photos of other galaxies And then we can know if there's other galaxies.
I
To
think
answer
that-
that question.
Yeah, they're probably working on it, but we just don't have that technology to get something that far. With the technology we have today, it would literally take us thousands of years.
I think he can help with that.
Okay.
We're actually studying a proposal called Project Starshot. The solar sail, take like 40 years to get to the nearest star. Take pictures and just send them back.
So pens, I've got, I've already got 3 pens, so if you happen to have one that you can use, if you want to be in the picture.
Just have a question. I have a 4-year-old grandson interested in planets. Is there anything that they say or can see and will they see it?
Yes, yes, in the IMAX theater, they have a, what's called like a play area for the younger kids.
Yeah.
And I believe that they have some things like that in there for them.
So IMAX theater will show the planet?
No,
Nothing.
it's just in the same building as the IMAX, it's kind of on the right hand side. They have their own dedicated place. Yeah, if you've never been, they have all kinds of.
We've never been there, so I don't know.
Okay, and I have a brochure of Kennedy Space Center back on the table.
Are there ways to get close to those launches, like
You
did
can,
for their
if you,
tickets? Or?
yes, so Kennedy Space Center Visitor Complex, there are little pamphlets out there. They sell tickets where they will take you to what's called the Apollo Saturn V Center, which is the second closest place you can get to see the rocket launches other than the crush site. And it's right across the river.
You can go around all the fort and the cave and tidal flow and
Yeah.
enjoy for free. You don't need to pay to see a launch.
Yeah, I was about to get really close.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Anyone else want to be in the picture? We'll go ahead and do this and close this out. So once you fill one of these out, come on up here. And maybe we can stand here. And I'm going to end the live stream by, thanks for attending.